Welcome, everybody. So we have two presenters today going to be talking to us about the ways that they use some assessment tools using discussion boards and wikis and blogs, and that would be Lieutenant Han from Respiratory Care and Leslie Madsen Brooks from History. So we'll just start with Lieutenant and when she gets your message.
All right, well, I'm trying something new, so I downloaded Keynote yesterday on my iPad, and now I will be presenting from it. So that's to say there may be a few mishaps, but that's the way it goes. I was at a meeting a couple weeks ago, and it's so interesting now sitting through this meeting and listening to learning outcomes and objectives and how we get there. One of the statistics that one of the speakers told, and of course I don't remember it exactly, but one of them was that less than 50% of nursing graduates can recognize a patient having a heart attack. So we think in our education that, obviously in healthcare you would hope that a graduate nursing student would be able to recognize this phenomenon. But it turns out that if that's not a direct objective, that we may not actually get there. And so I really like us all coming back to thinking about these points of how do our objectives, our activities, and our assessments align so that we create this framework for the student. I think we're all experts on our topics. We have good lectures. We try really hard to teach as much as we can. But I think sometimes we're not aligning all those things, all those aspects in a way that maybe we could have better outcomes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about discussion boards. I've used discussion boards in various ways over the last 5 years, starting with using them online only, for an online class, and I was very active with discussion boards. And I've just recently kind of brought discussion boards into my on-campus classes as a way to reflect. I've been trying out all these different active learning styles, and I do think that for some students that's great, but I also think there's some students that really learn well from reflection. And I think a discussion board is one way to try that out. So what we're going to do today is discuss the use of the discussion board, participate in one, and then create some questions around it for your own discussion board. So we love the idea that students out of class are meeting together amongst themselves and discussing the topics. As novices to what they've learned, we like this idea that they're doing that. I think sometimes this is what they're actually doing instead. So how can we be part of that? And I think with the mobile device, a discussion board is a way to be a part of this. We can debate whether we like this or not, or whether we think this is good or bad, but it's part of life. The other thing I think we all mention is that we walk by students on the computer and they're actually on Facebook, even in our class. So how do we be, it's kind of like, how can we be part of that? We know it's there, what role can we play? So here are some ideas on why to use these. And I think we've had various different mentions from different speakers throughout this meeting talking about some of these. But the idea that we can prepare for class by having them maybe pose questions from the reading, identify key concepts in the course readings through this discussion board, extend and apply issues introduced in the course outside, so again, or continue these in-class discussions outside of class. The nice thing about this is that it puts people that may not be as active participants within the class on an even playing field with those that are really boisterous in class. So you can pick a new role. If you're more introverted in person, you may be much more expressive when you're speaking, online in a digital environment. So how do we kind of talk our students into participating in these discussion boards? Well, I oh, and some of my edits haven't gone through, so doing this in Keynote, some of the formatting and stuff didn't quite come across that well, but that's okay. So I think when we ask the students to discuss something, again, if we give them the story of why this is an important discussion for them to have, it helps them buy into that, however we're going to do that. Give them that buy-in, whether I think sometimes we put it in a goal in our syllabus, but yet we don't really come back to that very often, so sometimes that's not as meaningful as actually putting it in the message that we're posting or our discussion post itself. I think it's also nice to let the students know, really, comes back to that same thing, why we want them to use this discussion board, whether it's to explore new ideas, review concepts, maybe compare experiences. In my online class, I use this a lot because I'm working with respiratory therapists that may have been working in the field for 5 or 10 years, and so they have a lot of experiences that they want to apply to this new information, and they're great about sharing those, and we get really rich discussions for them. And then it's also good to inform them of what you want them to base their discussion on, whether it's readings, the class discussion, or a personal opinion. And then how you expect them to use this. So generally what I tend to do is after a class say, in the next 2 days, please post your initial post to the discussion board, and then and then 2 days after that or whatever, respond to at least 2 of your classmates. So some formats similar to that. I really vary my grading rubric actually based on what I want out of it. For my online course, I have a pretty rigorous rubric where it's really specific because that's one of my main assessment tools that I use with them. For my on-campus students, it's a much kind of lower stakes thing. I really just want them to spend some time thinking about something outside of class and discussing it on a little bit more frequent basis. When I answered those questions this morning about how we do assessments, a lot of our assessments, and it's kind of just the department I came into, we give 4 multiple choice short answer tests a semester, and that's kind of the system that I was provided with. And so again, I think the frequency of these smaller assessments can be a nice tool to use. I also let the students know my role. Sometimes I'm really active in the discussion and post to many students. And when I first started doing discussion board, I had maybe a class of 12 or 13 and I responded to everybody's post and it was great. And then the next semester I had 35 students and I opened up my discussion board and I'd have 60 things to look at. And I was like, okay, I'm going to change my participation. And so I do it less and less, and I let the students know that up front. I'm not going to read every one of your posts, but I check in periodically to make sure where you're going is appropriate. Also, I let the students know, because I'm not reading everybody's post, if something comes up that's in question or that you're questioning, can you please let me know about that post, and I'll go double check and make some comments if they really need a little bit more of a facilitator. Oftentimes now what I do is I provide more of a summary, either in class or online, for areas that are going well and maybe not so well. Okay. We're to the point where we're going to try this out. So you're going to participate in a discussion. Have all of you downloaded the Blackboard mobile app? Okay, great. Let's see if I can get out of there. Go ahead and log into this mobile Learn app right there. And once you've logged in, you'll see I'm teaching one summer course, so it's showing up there along with the ones I've done the last couple of years. You'll see you have this link to the Summer Institute 2012. So we can go ahead and click onto there. Then here we have this discussion board. And so somebody else has loaded some questions for us. But I actually took a cue last night when I was choosing my final discussion questions that were going completely off topic. I thought I would do a discussion where we were actually talking about discussion board, but I decided, what the heck, it's after lunch. Let's just throw something out there. So you have three kind of different choices that you can talk to. And again, I'd like you, whatever one you choose, please make an initial post and then repost at least to 2 other people's posts. Okay? So our deep thoughts one is related to Chick-fil-A. How are the spicy chicken sandwich and the chicken sandwich alike? And how are they different? So if you'd like to respond to this, then you click the little response arrow there, and you can type in your thoughts.
Can you just scroll down through that?
How are we doing?
Top 2. Oh, it only shows
Is everybody able, are you to a little discussion board area?
Yeah.
Yes.
When
And I wasn't sure, I'm hoping you all have access to this course.
it just shows.
Oh,
us,
okay.
so, yeah, that's fine. I
Oh.
didn't know you could-
Oh, yes, you can scroll up. You only see the top 2 posts there,
Right.
and then you can scroll up.
Are we all doing Chick-fil-A?
No, you can do whatever one you want. That was my example. So, oops. You could also do, I have a question, we can talk about this current event, having this mountain lion on campus. Or if you're a sports fan, we can talk about that Big East versus the Mountain West.
So we post once and then reply.
Yeah, reply to, post one time and then reply to some others. Only because one of the other things I'm going to look at real briefly is how the grade book looks. We am not an English major. And you have to go back, I haven't played with this online version a lot, but you do have to go back to get kind of those updated posts. So if you want to respond, maybe click the back arrows and then go back into the program. Is there one we should be alerted to reading?
Oh, it looks like we have a logician here. Oh,
That's right, exactly.
That little arrow looks like a back arrow to me, so you can understand that was the text.
Yeah. I'm guessing this actually shows up to the class. Until it does.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and go out of this, this mobile version and go to the web version. And this will take me-
I know. There should be an app for that. Yeah, well, is there a reason why it won't let you scroll down some of these?
I don't know.
The thing I noticed is that if you go back out and then come back in, maybe it refreshes it a little bit.
So we can, if you wanted to send mode, or you in the.
No, I'm in this,
faculty
oh.
mode.
I don't know, Ellen, are we all faculty on this site?
Yes, no.
Oh, okay, okay. I don't know.
We see this as students.
I'll go look.
Oh, yes.
Sessions. You
On-
set the forms up, we can't set them.
There may be some things on this mobile version that you see a little differently. Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, so if you just downloaded this and logged it in, you're in that summer version of the Blackboard mobile site, so you wouldn't see the stuff from like your fall and spring courses that you may see on. So this I don't know, Alan might be able to explain that better. This somehow just logs us into the summer.
Right, because that's what it's on. And if you go on the Blackboard site and make those unavailable, it would be just.
So it's just curious. Yeah,
I'm more confused.
okay.
You just signed into Blackboard with Funko?
Oh. Yes, go back the screen, because you'll want to sign in up here at the summer Blackboard, and that'll get you there.
Yes.
Yeah. How many of you use Blackboard? I should have asked that to begin with. Okay, awesome.
I mean,
And you know what's funny is,
to post announcements.
yeah. Well, even when I went to that keynote presentation and looked at some of the PowerPoints that he was presenting, I realized, well, I use PowerPoint, but I use like this much of its capacity, and I'm probably that way with Blackboard, you know, like I use this much, but. Okay, so I just wanted to show you a little bit from the faculty side for the Grade Center. Actually, let me go back. I posted some documents on this, but I'm going to go in like and this looks a little bit different. Like I'm setting up a new, I'm going to show you what it's like to set up a new forum. So when I did this, I went in and I clicked Create Forum. I give it some name. I write some description about what we're going to discuss. Oops.
Sorry, I'm giggling about a post.
Oh, good. No, that was kind of the point. I figured we might as well just enjoy this. These are the default settings that come in when you select a new post. So again, you type a name, some little description about it, whether or not you want it available. So maybe you might want to post it in a week, but you're working ahead of schedule. Enter the time and date restrictions. Here are all your options. The things that are clicked right now are the default settings, like many things in Blackboard. Actually, the only one I generally click is I'm fine if the author edits their posts. I think sometimes we all click accept and then we go, what? What's that? Okay, so with the grade, I mean, obviously we can do no grade for it. I vary this grade, but for purposes of an in-class kind of low stakes thing, oftentimes I give it maybe just a 5-point value, and it's part of the kind of part of their participation grade. And the thing that I like here that I started doing is to show the participants that it needs graded after they've already made 3 posts, because that's my minimal criteria for what I was accepting for, their grade. So I submit that. Oops. So we'll just cancel. Then when I go into the grade center, let's see if I see everybody's participation. This is kind of a test. And I don't grade very often. Oh, that's right. This is why I needed my laptop, sorry. I can't, Alan, do you know how to scroll over in this? I can't actually see
Were you trying to scroll over to?
the actual grades. Oh, I can't do that, can I? I couldn't get my laptop.
It's a multi-fingered function that I can't achieve.
Okay, well.
It's like finger yoga.
Finger yoga, okay, well, since we haven't learned our finger yoga. Anyway, what I could do here is I go to the gradebook and look at needs grading, and then you get the little green box once they've participated. You click on that, and the nice thing is it immediately pulls up all their posts, and so you can then grade them, so it really does speed up the grading process for, I used to try to keep track in my reading of how many times did a person post and was it worthwhile. If you grade them from this gradebook feature, it really is nice.
You can change it back to only wanting one post. You can try to go back in the needs grading and we'll come back and the grade out.
That's why it's just 0 items need grade.
That's because you have 3 posts and none of us posted.
None of us posted.
So go back to the discussion board and put it in one post.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Oops.
But you can also grade from the discussion board.
Yeah, oh, yes.
And that's what I do, and it shows
Oh,
all
from right here?
of the people's
Yeah.
posts at the same time.
Okay. So it's still, that's not it. It should, the drop down. Oh, the drop down, okay. You're ready to bring it in today, very much in your report. Okay, so here we see the number of posts they've made. Let's look at,
The grade doesn't give all the posts.
I haven't used it in this way.
That's what I do.
Oh, yeah, so they're all his posts, and I can post a grade in the comment, so that is a nice other way to do it. I haven't used my iPad to grade the discussion board, so that's a learning tool for me. Okay, well, back to our next act. We'll quickly do another activity. So thank you for all your participation in our ideas. It's really interesting because after Jim Black mentioned this, and this is sort of in my summer read goal, and so I checked out a hard copy from the library, and I get it for a whole year. So, but then I found out, after listening to the librarians, that this is actually an ebook. So in your Dropbox, under Summer Institute Day 4, in our session, there are some examples, and we did this with a picture from Eric's iPad so it's listed as a photo. But the thing that I really liked about these kind of ways to start a discussion question, is that they link them back to knowledge comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Those same topics that Jen kind of gave us that first day when she was talking about that Bloom's taxonomy. So again, it's a way in our wording to link what our objectives are to the questions that we ask in our discussions. So are any of you finding that?
The Bloom's taxonomy.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I posted two things. So I posted the Bloom's taxonomy. Go down and it's actually an image in the Dropbox. Yes, so there's two images. One is an image of the cover of the book, so you can know my reference. And the other is a picture of this page. And I'm sure we could have done it in a more technical way, but this is our quick way of doing it this morning. So what I'd like you to now do is create your own discussion board question. And some ideas that I have just to kind of get you going are, again, questions related to your direct learning objectives, something from an activity or an assessment. I did one this spring that wound up being really fun, where students always ask me to do an exam review. They're really nervous about that first test, so they'd like me to give them a review. And of course, I already have content to cover in that class period, so I say no. But what I did this time is I said, well, how about if you guys do your own exam review? So I made a series of discussion board threads with particular main topics, and then each of them had to come up with a question. And so by the end of it, they generated over 100 questions, and I made them answer the question. Another classmate answered the question. So in discussion board, I built in an exam review, letting them create the questions. I think if I do that again, what I'll add in is then have the person who authored the question go in and say whether or not that was an appropriate response for what they were looking for. I got this example from Deb, who I've been sitting with, and she said she has a weekly post on, after this week's readings, here's what I didn't know. Kind of those aha moments that we all get that sometimes seem so obvious if we're experts in our field. We assume that that's known sometimes, whereas some of those things the students don't know. We heard from Callie Spear yesterday, I think it was, and she talked about using these discussion boards for pre-class questions. So after doing the reading, what questions or comments do you have? And again, I use a lot of times for student examples from their real life applied to the new content, especially if, older students really like this. And again, I posted this book that I've kind of been going through to improve my own teaching. Okay, so our activity now is to go back to that discussion board in our Blackboard site and create your own thread. So write your own question in your discipline, or and this could be one of the activities or assessments that you're working on for your teaching plan, whatever that form is that you're working on every day. This could maybe be one of the activities or assessments for that. So just think of a question.
So we click into test and then create a thread through that.
Going into, I think you'll have to,
At the bottom of
I
that
was
list,
assuming.
At the bottom of that list, there's text.
it says no threads.
No, that was mine. See, can you add that? Add yours there. Let's do that. Mhm.
we create a new thread or under your thread?
I was hoping you could, yes, create a new thread, so I think it's using the plus mark. The other question I do a lot of is compare and contrast. Tends to be a type of question I do.
Just ancient world, just did better context.
recordings to our, in the discussion board through our, no, mobile device now.
That would be sweet.
That would be sweet. Maybe next summer. Yes, exactly. Well, does anybody have any questions or other thoughts from other discussion board users?
Keep what you think to yourself, Nick Miller.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Good question.
Thank you.
So do I just plug that HDMI cable in here?
Yeah, it's good. Thanks. It's good. It should be good to go.
So today we are going to talk about WordPress, which is a blogging platform. We'll also touch on Wikis. But I want to talk a little bit about how I got to blogging, why. So Audre Lorde once said that the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. And I feel very strongly that we cannot use, if we really want education to be liberating and liberational, that we cannot use the corporate tools that are very expensive and very poorly made. But that's not the way to teach our students. So I don't use Blackboard. Instead, I build my own sites. I host my own sites. WordPress is an open source solution. So anybody has access to the code. You have access to thousands of plugins and themes. I'll show you some of those in a moment. But I first started blogging with my students back before I ever used a course management system, actually. I was on Blogger, and it was 2004 maybe, 2005, 2006, something like that. And I was teaching American Studies, and I wanted students to be able to know what other students in the class were thinking before they came to class. So the idea was that I would give them, we'd all read the same thing, I'd give them a little assignment, and they would create something and post it up onto the class blog. So they each had a login and were able to post up to the class blog. And that worked really well, and then I required them to each comment on a couple of other students' posts. And so sometimes I had them write, sometimes I had them create images, and then post those, and it worked pretty well. But again, it was on a site owned by Google, on Blogger. So I eventually bought my own hosting and installed WordPress and began using it. And once I realized how powerful it could be, I have never gone back and probably won't. So I have a number of sites that I've set up. I'm going to talk about some of them today. And then I have logins for you all to try WordPress sites. So if you go to teachinglearningresources.com, and I want to give a little caveat before we get into it. So on WordPress, it looks a little bit different and it has different functionality, even if you're going through the browser on the mobile devices and the laptop or desktop. And so it's more fully featured on the laptop or desktop. So today you'll probably run into a couple of frustrations. I do most of my creating for WordPress, my administrative of WordPress on my laptop, but then students are able to post to it using the mobile, and I can read it easily using the mobile and approve comments and whatnot. So let's go there. So this is what WordPress pretty much looks like out of the box. I added an image to the top. But pretty much what you get when you install WordPress, and I'll talk a little bit more later about how to install it, you get a place to put your title, or it automatically generates the title based on what you put when you set it up. And then you get this little post that says "Hello World," and then you can add whatever you would like to it. You can have images, you can have video, you can have audio, links, text, whatever. So if you click on the resource, and here just rules of terminology, these are called posts. Okay. And then up here across the top, where it's black, where it says resources, and you guys are getting this dark gray line there, which, for example, but there's this thing that says resources. If you click on that, then I put up a number of different resources for you. So there is one called Using WordPress in Your Courses. And that gives a little bit of background on developing assignments, and I'll walk you through some of that too, but just so that you have it, so you don't feel like you have to madly take notes. How I evaluate students, how I evaluate the use of technology, and then some basics on getting started with WordPress, and then my cautionary note there. There is a document called Provocations, which is a series of questions that I thought might be useful as you think about designing activities for WordPress, asking yourself questions like, what are my students responding to? How are they responding? Are they responding in public, or do I need to make this a closed private blog? Are my students going to collaborate with one another? Are they going to co-author? Are they going to individually author and comment on each other's posts? So those kinds of questions. We can talk about the advantages and disadvantages of those. And then I also have, because I'm going to be talking a lot about group work, I also put up my policy on group work, sample policy from an assignment that I'll talk about too. So you have that if you wanted to edit it or steal it wholesale if you wanted to do so. So we've been talking a lot about Bloom's taxonomy, and Lutana just alluded and posted in our Dropbox a document that has Bloom's revised taxonomy, where synthesize is replaced with create. One of the people who has been pushing that is his name is Churches, not sure, but he has this site called Ed Origami on Wikis, and he has turned this Bloom's digital taxonomy. And so I have a link there to Bloom's digital taxonomy, and you can go through it and see how it might differ. But basically what he's saying is that in the 21st century, we don't need students to adhere to Bloom's traditional taxonomy, that what we need them to be doing is this different kind of taxonomy, which looks a lot like the original taxonomy, but which starts with remembering and ends with creating. And by remembering, although that may seem pretty basic, what he means is, can you take an online quiz and get a right answer? Can you bookmark something? Could you use a social bookmarking service to remember where you found something? These kinds of things. So kind of a digital, this is a digital taxonomy. And it goes all the way up to creating. And sometimes you'll see this chart kicked off from between evaluating and creating is collaborating. That's a key 21st century skill, I think. I'm alone thinking that, of course. And so I'll talk a little bit more about collaborating today. So you can go through Bloom's digital taxonomy on your own time. I also wanted to introduce you to the concept of edupunk. So edupunk is a term coined by Jim Broom at the University of Mary Washington. And he basically says, it's very similar to what I was saying, the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. If you want to create change in education, you need to be using these open source tools. You need to be rolling your own classroom management system, your own classroom ecosystem. And in addition, students need to be rolling their own personal learning environments and their own learning ecosystems. And so he has this term edupunk that emphasizes the open source, do-it-yourself nature of where educational technology could be and ethos should be. Because Jim believes in that so strongly, he, Martha Burgess, and Andy Rush at the University of Mary Washington created something called UMW blogs. And if you click on that, you'll see that the entire university, allows anyone with a umw.edu email address to create their own WordPress blogs. And so you can explore how at the University of Mary Washington they're using they're using WordPress pretty widely for courses. You can explore some different courses, see what kinds of assignments they're doing with the blogging there. So, how am I using WordPress? So, I most recently used WordPress to have my students design and develop an online exhibition about women's amateur arts and crafts in Idaho. So it was for the course Women in America, the Western Experience. And I wanted students to think about how they could go about learning history from artifacts and how they could interpret artifacts, and especially to do that in a digital age. So I was fortunate enough to be one of the Learning Scholars 2.0. And so all my students had iPads, and they worked together to develop an exhibit. And they collaborated with the Idaho State Historical Museum. So the website is still rough around the edges. There are a few things that I need to do to make it work a little bit better, but you can explore it. I don't vouch for the quality of student work on the site. The assignments range in grades from A- to D, so please don't hold that against me or against blogging in general. But what I did is I had students break up into groups, and if you click on, most of these are live, like text or report or linear painting. If you click on those links, you can learn more about Idaho's, about the history of Idaho women participating in these crafts. And the students had to take pictures, good pictures of all of the artifacts, and some of the pictures are really quite amazing, actually. If you click on these, you get very giant photos down to the level where you can see individual stitches and some of these.
Did they use the iPads to take pictures?
Some of them used their iPads, some of them used camera phones, some of them brought 35 digital SLRs. So they all had different kinds of cameras. And so the students worked in groups of 4 or 5 for the most part to put these together. And the way that I graded them, aside from giving them a rubric telling them how they would be graded, is I told them that all of the group members would get the same grade. If you look at my group work policy, so this is excerpted from that assignment. So I always tell them that they need to not grab the person sitting next to them to be in their group. And I emphasize this again and again and again, and yet at the end of the semester there are always a few people who come in and say, you told me not to grab the person sitting next to me, but I did, and I really regret that. So I encourage them to find people who have mutual interests, but also who have mutual schedules with them, and whose strengths are complementary. So you want to have one really strong writer. You want to have someone who's a little bit technologically adventurous, for example. You put together that kind of team and think of yourself like the WordPress adventurers. And I tell them that they all are going to get the same grade. They all have to contribute to the writing and research, and beyond that, I don't care who does what, as long as the work is equitable, and they're all going to get the same grade. And I keep emphasizing they're all going to get the same grade, unless you let me know sooner in the course than later, and this was a semester-long project, that there are people who are either not showing up to your group meetings, and I need to know about that, or people who are dominating it. I once was using Wikis, and a student came to me and said, every edit I make on a wiki, this one woman in my group keeps reverting it. And indeed, I was able to go into the wiki history and see, yes, she's a total type A personality, and she wouldn't accept anybody else's changes. She kept switching them back to her own version. So I said, I need to know if there's someone who's type A in the group, or if there are people who are not pulling my weight, and I will pull them off into their own group. And since students know I will do that, and they know that that would be embarrassing when they have to give their final presentation alone, that they didn't play well with others, the groups tend to cohere pretty well. So getting back to this. So the students, for the most part, enjoyed using WordPress. When it was time for them to work on it in class and groups, increasingly they brought laptops because, again, WordPress is more full-featured, not on a mobile device. So in class, they were posting comments or something, they could easily do that on their mobile devices, but for more serious authoring and editing, they wanted their laptops. So in class, I used a different website this last semester. And that was, and I just used a very simple WordPress website. And it was great because I can just have a link where I just upload the assignments for the course, and we can download them in doc and PDF form, and then a syllabus where they can either download it as a PDF file or read it right there. And a lot of students really appreciated being able to have this someplace where they didn't have to log in to get it. It was just out there on the open web. And then the posts that you see at the top that are all about Indigenous American women, that was part of an extra credit assignment where students posted to the blog. But for the most part, I used the blog to ask them questions. So, for example, this one. You can see that I asked the students a number of questions, and I asked them to read some short articles. In addition to the reading, we had read their local landmark, and they read some additional short articles that sort of made it more relevant to today, and the aftermath of September 11th, and whether or not their tournament was still okay for 25 next week. And then they also visited the Dead Show Archive. And the Dead Show Archive is an archive of oral histories, images, newsletters, whatever, from people who were in Japanese Americans who were interned during World War II. So they were able to explore those. One of the benefits of that was that whereas before all the students had devices, I would just have to take like one primary source for them to consider, maybe two at most of the class period, and hand it out to them as paper copies. This way, students can pick and choose which ones they want to look at, and they can explore their own interests. So if they wanted to hear about Norman Mineta, the former Secretary of Transportation who's Japanese American, and hear about his internment as a child, they could. If they wanted to investigate a woman's experience, they could do that. So that worked out really well. I also had them, for example, we talked about, when we were discussing Dorothea Lange, who was a Depression-era photographer who worked for the government. We talked about government propaganda and using photographs as government propaganda. And then they were able to, using their mobile devices, go explore on Flickr the White House photo stream, the official White House photo stream, the Department of Agriculture's photo stream, and all these different government agencies, and compare what was going on in the 1930s with what was going on today and how the government is framing itself. So again, these are uses of me posting something to the blog. These posts are very easy to put up, as you'll discover in a moment. And then other times I gave all of the students logins. So for this one, I was the only one who had a login for the Women in the West. But when I taught my graduate public history course, my applied history course, all of the students had logins. And so any of them were able to post. And then I would go in and grade those. So blogging raises a lot of questions for both from the instructor's point of view and from the student's point of view, right? So students wonder, like, who's going to read my posts? Who's going to be seeing this, right? And the answer is, during the semester, probably not too many people. It takes a while for people to find a blog. A lot of people probably are not keyword searching for words having to do with applied history or not. But there are exceptions. So a colleague of mine, Barbara Sawhill, who runs the language lab at Oberlin, had her students blogging in Spanish. They had to take an issue that was of interest to them and blog about it in the language they were studying. So they're blogging in Spanish. And one woman who had traveled abroad to Mexico and worked with NGOs over in Mexico was writing about the femicides in Ciudad Juarez. And she began getting comments from people who had lost their daughters, whose daughters had disappeared or whose daughters had been killed, and who wanted to help and wanted to know who they could get in touch with. And so this student sitting in Ohio was able to provide resource links to these people who in Mexico apparently couldn't even get answers that they needed. So when we talk about real-world applications of your learning. In another case, at Middlebury, Barbara Ganley was teaching a contemporary Irish literature course, and we're all writers. We have a little bit of ego about our writing. Some of us may even Google our names from time to time. And so one of the authors they were reading Googled his name, and the Middlebury blog came up. And so the author was leaving comments on the students' posts. And how often in class you get to have conversations with the author, and then they Skyped him in, and were able to have an intercontinental conversation. So blogs are really great for connecting people. One of the other things that I do, so with my History 502 in my graduate course, I had students writing in response to specific prompts for the most part. Every once in a while they would throw up something just because they wanted to share something. But for the most part they were responding to specific prompts. And I graded every single one of those because they each had different assignments. In other courses, however, when I've had students blogging more often or more, the topic's more open, what I've done is I have commented on them as it goes, just kind of responding not in terms of evaluating, but continuing the conversation. And then at the end, and I tell them they're going to grade all their blogs at the end of the semester. And then what I do is I tell them, turn in your 5 best posts and your 3 best comments. I don't tell them that in advance, but they only write 5 good posts. Right? So they can pick the 5 best ones. And then depending on my mood, I may or may not let them revise that before they turn it in the portfolio. But it's also important that they turn in their best comments too, so I can show them, so they can show me that they're engaging and thinking about stuff. So enough of the lecture portion of this. If you go to teachinglearningresources.com/WP-admin, you get a login. Now, I'm going to hand out some usernames and passwords. Please do not write anywhere on these forms what the login address is, because we don't need the login address connected with usernames in a recycling bin. Okay, and so there aren't enough logins for all the people in this room, but you can share, so 2 people can be logged in at the same time as the same person. When that happens, you should be aware that whoever clicks save first wins. But there are some of these are authors, some of these are administrators, some of them are editors, and under each of these it explains what the role is and does. I didn't get anybody whose names, I didn't want to embarrass anyone by having their actual, or show favoritism by having actual names. So all the names are the most popular names in the 1920s. So you may see your parents' or grandparents' names on there. It's all case sensitive, so you need to be sure to use all lowercase or uppercase. All right. If you log in as an administrator, I'll give you another couple minutes to log in. If you log in as an administrator, anybody assistants logging in?
We use one of these.
Use any one of them. And it's up to you if you want to do author, editor. So it's teaching learning resources. Yeah. And then slash. Anyone else need help?
I can see
I'll do it now. All right, anyone else need help?
So I logged in.
It looks different because you're in a different role. So which one did you use? And, okay, yeah, so.
Actually, no, I used it.
Okay, so on this list, the ones that say author have the least user privileges. It's kind of like if you're a student on a Blackboard site, you can't mess it up, right? If you're an author, what you can do is you can create posts. So if you go to posts up here on the left, and if you click on it or touch it, it'll either open up a new page or give you a drop-down menu. So post, add new. And then what you do is you give your post a title. You can write about anything you want.
Then just write a post.
You just write a post. Over here in this particular WordPress theme, so theme is like the clothes that WordPress wears. That's what it looks like. And this particular theme has different kinds of post types, and depending on which one you check, it appears different. You can experiment with that. There's also categories, and it's always good to check a category because then if someone's looking for posts on that category, they can locate other ones. So you can just click one of those boxes or more than one box. That's all you're crazy. Now, it's hard to do this on the iPad, but this little icon here that says upload and insert, if you're on your desktop or laptop, that's where you can put in all kinds of, and this, it does allow you a little bit of functionality, but not much, but you can put in anything. And that's how I put in the PDFs and the docs on my resources post. If you're not seeing two lines here on the editing panel, you can click this one right here, and this was actually called Show by Kitchen Sink. As in, show everything but the kitchen sink. And that should give you some more editing capabilities.
So Leslie, does WordPress have good user tutorials?
Yes, yes.
So you can just take yourself through it?
Yeah. So, and then you can either save your draft for later or publish. And when you go to, since we're all on the site at the same time, it's going to be like, ooh, might be a little slow because I don't have super fast posting. And then if you just open a new tab. Who needs help? It's basic, just posting some text. Anybody? So if you haven't already logged in as an administrative user, and then well, first of all, if you go back to all posts, over there on the left, you're going to get a list of posts. Now, if you are, I'm logged in as an administrator, so I can see, everybody's posts, and I can see, the name of the poster and what they're posting, whether or not it's in draft. And I, as an administrator, have power to edit it. So if Katie starts going on about necropedophilia, I can get that. And then, and I can do all different kinds of stuff. I can moderate comments when people start putting comments on. The default settings for WordPress are the first time somebody comments, their comment has to be moderated by the administrator. And that's to keep spammers out. The second time, once their first comment is approved, they can comment all the time. But you can change that as you want. I don't have problems with spam really on my course sites. It's not an issue. So I can do all different kinds of stuff. And then if I wanted to, I can go to appearance, and this is where you can begin to have a lot of fun. And if I click on themes, So there are, it comes pre-installed with a couple of different themes. And when you change a theme, it doesn't change for the most part. Usually, as long as you're making like a block with one column and one main column, one sidebar, it doesn't change where things are. Now, it doesn't look like it on the iPad. If you review this on the desktop, there's actually a sidebar. On the iPad, it automatically adjusts so that this is down underneath all of those. But you can go and you can, if you're logged in as administrator, and I encourage you to do this, you click on that Install Themes tab up here, and you pick your favorite color. And then you pick how many columns you want to have, and whether you want a right or a left sidebar. Don't worry about the fixed width, flexible width. And then they have all these other options that once you're a WordPress person, you might get a better sense. But for now, I just leave them alone. And then you find themes. And usually hundreds of themes come up. This one, not very many this time. I can say, oh, this Tropicala thing looks good. I'm going to install it. And then once you install a theme, you activate it, and boom, you've got your website's ready to go.
So that changes existing content.
It doesn't change the content, it just changes what it looks like. So I'm going to activate that. It's done loading. And so for the crafting Idaho one, so here's the old one, and then I'm going to reload it. And it should change. With the crafting Idaho one, and you can muck around with the title one on to make it fit. With the crafting Idaho one, I had students have this long discussion in class about what they wanted in the theme, what they wanted on their online activity to do, what they wanted the user experience to be like. And then I happened to, I got lucky a few years ago because with my husband, I actually co-own a small graphic design firm. And so we bought a package of premium themes. And I linked to that to the Studio Press themes so that I can get some pretty fancy themes. But a lot of the free themes are also very nice and have a lot of functionality. Now, if the theme doesn't have a function that you like, you can go over to plugins. And what plugins do, adding plugins to your WordPress site is kind of like souping up your car. Okay. So, say you wanted to have threaded comments, like in a discussion board, where when somebody responds to somebody else, it gets indented, right? So, let's find any of those. Oh, that's search install plugins. Where are they?
Or has threaded comment.
Plugins. So you can read about the different versions of threaded comments there are. I'm going to just be bold and install one. Yes. I'm going to activate it. And then once you activate a plugin, usually, and the problem with plugins is they all of their functionality appears in different places. Sometimes it appears under appearance, sometimes it appears under settings. So here at the bottom of the settings dropdown menu, there is intense debate. So I'm going to click on that and see what options it gives me. So it ends up, I won't do it now, but it ends up that this particular plugin requires you to have an account. But you can easily, it's very easy, I just wanted to show you, to set up plugins. And plugins can do any number of things. They can pull in Twitter feeds, they can add comments, they can add drop shadows to your photos. You can put in a photo gallery, you can put in a carousel where the photos scroll around. There's many, many different ways to handle that. Now say though that you just wanted to change something in the sidebar. So you click on, if you're again in administrative mode, you click on Appearance, Widgets. And over here, there's a sidebar, right? sidebar, like a calendar. Shoot. It's not letting me do it on the iPad. But you can do this on your desktop. Basically, you grab one of these things that you wanted to have. Like say, with Intense Convey, this new plugin, it'll tell you which posts have the most comments. And probably in that case, which posts are most controversial or popular. You can grab this and drag it over here, and it'll show up in your sidebar. And then with, WordPress has posts and pages. Posts kind of change a lot, right? They're things you update frequently. Pages tend to be things that are relatively static. So on my Women in the West course, I had 2 pages, syllabus and assignments, pages that people would do regularly at home. You'd have to search through all the posts to find them. And usually pages will show up in a menu across the top. So what I'd like you to do now is I'm going to make myself available for questions, either about creating assignments or about using WordPress. But right now I'd like you to basically do everything but try to break the site. 3 rules. If you, and they're posted on the, actually posted on the site. So my 3 rules. Don't share these usernames or passwords with people from outside this workshop. If you're logged in as an administrator, don't change the rules about the users. Because if you change this all to authors, none of us can do anything with the site anymore, and I have to uninstall it and reinstall it. Long. And don't delete the resources page. But everything else is fair game. You can change the menus, you can change the widgets, you can, if you're an administrator, you can add users, you can change themes, add plugins, whatever you want. And I'll circulate around with good questions about assignments or about WordPress functionality. I'm happy to answer them. I also, we don't have time for it, but I also put up in the resources page links to a couple of wikis that I've worked on for my students, and if you have questions about wikis, thank you very much. Yeah. So, so you want to go to dummy feedback? Yeah, and if you want to log out and log back in as a different user, if you haven't figured this out already, you click on the name at the upper right, where it says Howie Walter or Howie Floyd or whatever.
Oh, so I'm seeing less stuff because I'm not in this.
Right, right. So if you log in as an administrator, you get to see all stuff. If you are an editor, then you get to edit not only your own posts, but other people's posts. So what I did with my students when they were posting to the Crafting Idaho site is I actually gave each group of 1 login. It was not important to me that I saw each individual student's work, and I wanted students to be able to edit each other's work. So with 1 group login, it acted as if 1 person, and they could edit their own group's work.
And they were all editors. I'm sorry.
They were all editors. They were all editors. I was going to be an administrator. And there's also, so these are all, these are all in the document and resources called Using WordPress in Your Courses. These are all things that I have. These are all of my courses are things that I host myself. It costs me $6.95 a month plus $10 a year for the domain names. I can have multiple courses on one domain, so you'll note that my URLs are like 502.doinghistory.com, womenwest.doinghistory.com, to 1877.doinghistory.com. So I can have multiple courses, or I can do doinghistory.com/1877. There's multiple ways to set it up, but it's a very inexpensive way. And it would be entirely possible for a department to just pay $6.95 per month to host all of the faculty web pages.
$6 a minute.
Yeah. But there also is a free version of WordPress.com. It doesn't have as many features, but you can set up free blogs. You can have your students set up their own free blogs there. So that's another possibility. I think one of the skills that graduate students, that all students really should have, is they should be able to set up a website and be able to showcase their expertise online. So I often tell stories with them about how I have started blogs on subjects that interest me. I have a blog about museums. I have a blog about multicultural toys. And just by the virtue of blogging, I got a couple jobs. For my museum blog, I was interviewed by newspapers. For my multicultural toys blog, these are things I had any special expertise in. When I started them, but I began writing and engaging with other people in the blogosphere, and it gave me some kind of stature. So it's kind of like it's not peer review by any means, but it is a way to engage with the public and other experts out here. Questions? No photos of dead children. There also is a WordPress app, by the way. If you downloaded that, it has very basic functions. You can explore that. My students tended to go back and forth between the WordPress app and the browser. With the WordPress app, all you need to do is enter teachinglearningresources.com and then the username and password. It's short for web. Thank you.
Just in case you were wondering.
Are there other questions about things you want to be able to do or how to set up a sign?
And child burials. About children in each. So that's where that whole thing comes from.
It's not literally, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I find it might be that you're going from the image search rather than the image itself. That might be it. So if you
Took a very because I can't remember now if it was from or two.
please.
Yes. Yes. It was pretty bad. Great. After where you're sitting upright all night because I didn't get the bird. It was pretty rough, but when I got to where I wanted to go, I was really scared and I would love to go back. I'm sure so much has changed since
Other questions? So one thing that I made a bit of a plug for is one of the key projects that I'm working on with my students is the Boise Wiki, which is a chronicle of Boise past and present. It's at boise.localwiki.org. Anyone can post to that wiki. Anyone can edit that wiki. I encourage you to use it in classes if you have students investigating anything about Boise. It's boise.localwiki.org. Eventually it will be back at boise.org. There's another one there, but I just moved it over to the new platform. But the great thing about the Boise Wiki is I've had students, I've used it in 2 classes, and I've had students tell me, I use the Boise Wiki to procrastinate for my other homework. You know the difference between a blog and a wiki. So a blog usually has single-authored posts that other people can respond to. A wiki is a website that anyone can edit, so it can be collaboratively edited.
So, Lucy, do you have paper assignments that your students do, or everything digital?
It depends on the course. So when I teach public history, I tend to have things be digital because those are the skills that the students need. When I teach a course that's not as public history focused, then it tends to be more on paper and more traditional essays that I would work on. Public history, I try to make it as digital as possible.
help desk, so if you dial 426 help, they will help you with WordPress also. Yeah, so Leslie is much more, her digital literacy is better than Lisa, obviously. And so I call the help desk a lot, they're my friends. Yeah. So it's like, so I thought it was cool that they do support WordPress because I think it does look like a fun tool to use.
So I just put on a link and I guess I'm not sure where it will.
Okay.
Because I went
So
to
you
links.
added the link there? Okay.
Yes.
I've never done it that way. You know what, I know where it goes. Okay, so what it does is you go over to Appearance, and then Widgets, and then there's one called Links, and so if you could drag that one over there, it's not letting us on my iPad. But if you could drag that one over, once you pulled it over there, DMZ will issue it.
I see. Oh.
Showing up?
But if you click on it, it takes
But if
you
you
to
click on it, yeah.
where I added it, not to the actual link.
Right, it's not live on the front page. So,
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so if you click on it, so if you go to where it says links, then you actually click on the URL and it takes you to WordPress.
and I'm going to leave this open. This is going to be left open for the indefinite future. So please, in the coming days, if you want to take this sheet with you, just jot down separately where to log in. It will, or I'll add a login on the resources page. You can manipulate as much as you want. Well, thank you guys very much.